Welcome to a brand new episode of the Bold Take Podcast. I'm Austin Hill. With me, as always, is Austin Waiter, and we're back talking college football bowl game and college football playoff action. Real quickly, if you haven't listened to the NFL episode that came out just a few days ago, I know, came out early, came out several days before the college football episode. I know, crazy. But if you haven't listened to it, you've got no excuse. Get on it. Stop this video, go watch the other one, then come back here. A lot of
And join us NFL in a couple of days too, because we got to talk all the craziness that could go down in Week 18, getting ready for NFL playoffs too. So make sure and stick around for that one in a couple of days as well.
Absolutely. Lots going on in the NFL. You're going to want to tune in. We're heating up, getting ready for the playoffs. Um, but let's just start it right away with the college football playoff games. Obviously, that's where we left off last week, was setting up the scene for these big college football playoff games, the beginning of the 12-team playoff. And what we saw, at least to start out this year, is the college football playoff home teams reigned supreme. And I think it's safe to say home field advantage had something to do with it in these games. Um, let's start first with the first game we saw, Notre Dame versus Indiana in Notre Dame Stadium, South Bend, Indiana. Under touchdown Jesus. And for a very short amount of time, a 98-yard touchdown was the shortest touchdown ever scored in the 12-team college football playoff era. For about 2 quarters, it was the shortest touchdown in the history of the 12-team playoff, which is obviously was a fun stat that obviously didn't last. But Notre Dame just ran the ball in this game. Um, Riley Leonard made some big throws in this game. But to me, I know we were kind of going back and forth talking about it. I was talking with several people about this that if Indiana was not going to be able to stop Jadarian Price, Jeremiah Love, and Riley Leonard from just running the ball whenever they wanted, this game was never going to be in the Hoosiers' favor. And it wasn't for the most part. Now, couple of crazy scores and sequences happen at the end of this game that make this game a nice, pretty 10-point loss for the Hoosiers. But this was never a 10-point game. This was never a close game. And the final score, look, if you think this game was close based on the final score, you're just box score watching. This was domination by Notre Dame.
Let me just say this to all the people that are talking about, well, this is why the 12-team playoff shouldn't matter. This is why those teams shouldn't have gotten in. That's what home team, being the home team in the playoff matters. It's very important. It's very tough to go on the road in these environments and win games. It's very tough to go to Notre Dame and win. It's very tough to go to Happy Valley and win. It's very tough to go to Texas and win. And it's very tough to go to Ohio State and win games. So that's the thing I want to say to people. And to say Indiana and SMU didn't belong in the playoff picture. If you're going to say that, you better include Tennessee because I want it to be known this Bold Take podcast told you all about Tennessee all year long, that we didn't believe they were a true team. We both believe they were fraudulent the whole year. And yeah, so if you're going to mention, Indiana and SMU not belonging in the playoff, you better include Tennessee in the conversation. If you don't, then your opinion is irrelevant on that, because you're just showing what we call SEC bias, that SEC network. And ESPN were doing the entire freaking week that whole time was going down. But as far as this game, yeah, Notre Dame ran away with it. It went exactly, I think, as we all predicted. The line of scrimmage was where Notre Dame dominated. They got pressure on Curtis Rourke, made him uncomfortable. Notre Dame ran the football all over him. And, I mean, Indiana really had no shot. Once they had the first interception of the game, it felt like maybe they had a chance. But then Curtis Rourke threw the interception, and then they went 98 yards for the touchdown. It felt like you could have called the game after that, in all honesty, because after that, Indiana didn't have a shot. And that's how it played out. So, yeah, it looked closer than it actually was, but that be just for the box score watchers who didn't watch this game completely and watch Notre Dame completely destroy Indiana in this one. But credit to Indiana. Let's not bash Indiana here. I don't think anyone, what am I saying? I don't think. I know nobody had them playing in the college football playoff to start the season. It's an incredible first year for Kurt Signetti. I'm looking forward to what he does as a sequel next year for Indiana with some of the pieces they've already gotten in the transfer portal.
Yeah, I think the first thing you got to do at Indiana is to build a tougher schedule. I because obviously I think Signetti knows what the conversation this offseason is going to be about this Indiana team. Two losses in the two biggest games of the season, and neither were particularly close. Um, and so it's going to be hard for this Indiana Hoosiers team to get back to the college football playoff without winning a conference championship. So certainly, I think top of the list is build a tougher schedule. Um, put some people on notice. But you're right. The Hoosiers had a great season this year. Um, you brought up some interesting points about people not belonging. I'm glad you did. Save those thoughts for a little bit later. I've got a special talk. We can really get into it. Um, but yeah, like you said, that interception Riley Leonard threw on the first drive. Um, I nearly went ballistic. But I was like, it's a tipped ball. But I was like, that's the one thing we don't need is to give Indiana momentum somewhere they shouldn't have momentum. But then, like you said, Curtis Rourke throws the interception in the red zone. And then Jeremiah Love takes it 98 yards for a touchdown. Um, and that blew the top off of Notre Dame Stadium. The fans immediately got into it. It got loud. I mean, even my living room became a scene. I went insane on that 98-yard touchdown run. Uh, it was just a big momentum swing so early in the game that really did end it. But then we go to Penn State, whose defense dominated SMU. Two huge pick sixes to open up this game. And what I like about Penn State is they did not let this become a battle of the offenses. The defense showed up and played. We kind of talked about it. If this became an offensive shootout, this started to favor SMU just with the way that Penn State has been run under James Franklin. And it's, look, we're both James Franklin guys here. We both like Penn State. But obviously, in some of the big games and the bigger moments, the offense, for whatever reason, shies away from taking its big chances in the James Franklin era. And I don't know if that's just a him decision or just coincidentally happens to be all the offensive coordinators he hires. Um, but they don't take the deep balls, they don't take the risks. They trust the solid running back that they always have. Um, and they just try to pound the ball and take the easy throws. And that allows games to stay closer because they don't take the big explosive plays to try and run the score up. They really try to control the clock. But in this one, the defense didn't let that happen. The defense dominated, controlled the game, and not a single passing touchdown for Penn State. Really just an impressive performance that was helmed by a phenomenal defensive effort.
Yeah, I mean, listen, this was what people forget what this was throughout most of the first quarter and second quarter. I mean, two pick sixes by Penn State made it 14-0. You take away the two pick sixes, this is a 0-0 game. Very low scoring defensive battle. And Penn State's only up 14-0 at half. If maybe those two pick sixes don't happen. But look, Kevin Jennings, look, we've loved him all year. We thought he's been great. It's clear he's still got a little bit of improving to do. He was not ready for that atmosphere at Penn State. I mean, that's just, I love the guy and I want him to succeed, but he was not ready for that atmosphere at Penn State. And it clearly showed in the game. Multiple bad mistakes in that game, scrambling around when he didn't need to scramble around, panicking whenever he didn't need to. And then once Penn State got up 14-0 without their offense doing anything, they just ran the football down their throat. And after that, it was over. It was completely over. And Penn State dominated this game. Like you said, they didn't really have to throw the ball. They didn't really have to do that in this game because they got up ahead so early because of their defense, which If they want to have success in a game later tonight, that's what they're going to need as well, is success from their defense.
Absolutely. Then we've got Texas running for 292 yards and a 38-24 beatdown of Clemson. Another game that looks a little bit closer on the scoreboard, but wasn't really as close watching the game. And look, let's start by saying it. I know the internet's been saying it. Now I assume we'll both join in and follow the internet here. You can't hit the night celebration with 52 minutes left in a football game. That should be reserved for game winners or late game clutch scores only. Not for the first score of the game with, like I said, 52 minutes of football left to play, where you proceeded to get outclassed and outscored 38-17. Uh, um, that's not. I don't know. That's not exactly what I would be doing.
I wouldn't recommend it to people. Wouldn't recommend it. Listen, Clemson, yeah, they fell behind this one 31-10, and then they somewhat made it interesting in the fourth quarter, made it somewhat interesting. But then Texas went down and scored. Clemson turned over on downs, and the game was over. And then that pretty much sealed the deal on it. So it was interesting for maybe like 5 minutes in this game. But besides that, yeah, it was all Texas. They ran the football extremely well. Quinn Ewers really didn't have to do that much offensively. And yeah, but listen, I give Clemson credit. They played better than I thought they would in this game. They played much better than I thought they would in this game. And it's clear that Dabo must have heard our cries. He must be a bold take listener because he's going out in the transfer portal and getting guys now. So listen, I think there's a lot Clemson can build on. And if they use the transfer portal like they have been so far and get more guys, they could legitimately be a top five team in the preseason next year.
Yeah, I mean, look, Clemson was at the top of the game for a while. But Dabo just tried to abstain from the change in college football, and that got this Clemson program behind the eight ball. We're talking about a team that legitimately, like you said, could have been a top four team this year, barring they used the transfer portal even slightly. And not maybe not even top four overall in the country, but they could have had a top four bye game even and just completely avoided playing in the first round. But they just refused. So now it seems Dabo's learned if he's going to compete in this new era of college football with a team, with even teams in the ACC like SMU or Miami, for the long term future of this conference or even Florida State, those teams are grabbing tons of big names in the transfer portal. And for Miami and SMU, it really, really worked out this year. Can't say so much for Florida State. Um, but yeah, finally, about time Dabo Sweeney took his ability to recruit and get some guys and show. I mean, this is going to be a great pitch. Three losses. We were counted out of the college football playoff, and we still made it happen. We get you, and we've got to buy next year. I mean, I think that's an easy pitch for anybody.
Yeah.
Uh, but finally, Ohio State they defend the shoe 42-17 versus the Vols, and this is a better way to close out the season in Columbus because it didn't look so pretty at the end of the regular season. What we thought might have been their last game in the shoe, but in this one they were just able to flat out dominate the Volunteers. And again, look, we talked about it. This home field advantage is so important in college football already. These and look, we played in some historic venues. We played in Austin. We played in Beaver Stadium. We played in Notre Dame Stadium, and we played in the Shoe. I mean, these are big fan bases and some of just the supreme venues in college football. So these were not going to be easy cakewalks by any means to come into these stadiums and get the job done. Um, but man, Tennessee started the season out so hot on such an easy schedule. They looked like they had one of the best offenses in college of football, and they still do. And they still have a lot of future and a lot of promise. Um, but they have got to just protect Nico better. A lot of his trouble came to pressure, being hurried, and he got banged up several times this year, including in this game. Um, so I think this is a great step for Tennessee. Uh, but yeah, they've got to protect their quarterback better, especially he's your quarterback of the future. He's young. Protect this guy, give him the chance to develop. And for Ryan Day, you may have bought yourself another year at Ohio State, which I hate saying.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I've made my opinion clear about Ryan Day for a while, but as far as this game, I mean, Ohio State came out and just straight up punched them in the mouth. Ohio State got up 21 nothing like that. It was pretty much over from the get-go. They straight up punched them in the mouth, and Tennessee scored 10 unanswered in the second quarter to make people think they maybe had a chance in this game. And then Ohio State punched them in the mouth some more in that second half. I mean, Ohio State played like a team that was angry with how they played against Michigan. They were upset, disappointed with how they played. So they're like, we're better than that. Let's go out and show it on national stage against a team that outperformed fans at College Game Day that said they were coming to take over your stadium, and we're all out there with no shirts on, being tough in that cold weather, and they just completely humiliated them. I mean, it was very impressive for Ohio State. They played like a team that was angry and disappointed with their performance against Michigan, and they showed it. And you talk about with Tennessee. Look, Nico just needs a little bit longer to develop. Keep in mind, he is a freshman quarterback. Let's just put that out there. He will be there for a while. The big key to me, though, obviously, Dylan Sampson didn't really play in this game. I don't know. I think it was some sort of injury or some point. Um, but he's gone to the NFL. You got some defensive pieces that will be going to the NFL. You got to reload on the defensive side of the ball, especially because Nico, if he wants to continue to develop, he's got to have a confidence booster in a defense. This can't be like with Hendon Hooker, where we're scoring 40 points, but we're giving up 50 points to him, and him feeling like he has to match up score for score with that kind of pressure. The defense and the running game has to keep on reloading for Nico over these next couple of years. And if they do, and Nico continues to improve, Tennessee will eventually be a problem.
Yeah, a big advantage that this Tennessee team has, is that Josh Heupel's clearly shown how good he is at getting talent in the transfer portal. So this team is always a transfer portal period away from being a top five team in the country. Uh, that's just how good Heupel's been. I mean, look at the team he built this year.
Yeah.
And the team he built, like you said, with Hendon Hooker, guy he got out of the transfer portal, a team he got out of the transfer portal. So clearly, this is a guy who fits right in this new era of college football, kind of on the opposite end of the spectrum from Dabo Sweeney, or what Dabo Sweeney used to be. Uh, but look, we've got an important conversation to have. And look, you immediately saw after the Notre Dame Indiana game, a whole day before we'd see the actual SEC Tennessee Vols playing in a game. Um, that after the Indiana game, after the SMU game, after the Clemson game, people were saying, "Oh, the 12-team playoff, it's stupid. The automatic bid for Clemson, it's stupid. Should have been a bunch of SEC teams in there." And then Tennessee played. Uh, And then you can't make that argument anymore because they were better than Alabama. They beat Alabama. They were better than Ole Miss. They were better than South Carolina. So what can you do? I just want to give my thoughts here. I think it's fair to say, man, some of these teams, these teams didn't really live up to what we thought in the 12-team playoff. But two things that are important. Something I think we both harped on pretty heavily here. Home field advantage is so important. That's why it's so important to win your games and to get the highest ranking you possibly can, especially when it means you could be playing in one of these historic venues. Yes, home field advantage matters that much, especially when you talk about environment. Look, I'm not saying Tennessee doesn't play in some ruckus environments in the SEC, but they don't play in the shoe against Ohio State every year.
No.
You can't. It's not that Indiana didn't play in a tough environment this year or any tough environments this year, but they don't play Notre Dame routinely. in Notre Dame Stadium. You're talking about putting teams in their comfort zone, out of their comfort zones against teams they haven't played, not just this year, but in the last, I don't know, 15 years. It's unfamiliar situation, and I think that's the fun in it. But it also leads to a situation like this. But also, I think it's fair enough to say that there were not 12 deserving teams of a 12-team playoff. Uh, there weren't 12 good enough teams. I just don't think if you replaced Indiana with Alabama or Ole Miss uh, or South Carolina, that they put up a better fight against Notre Dame. I'm just not convinced. Alabama's defense couldn't stop the run all season, and that's Notre Dame's best aspect. That's where they killed the Hoosiers, who are the best run stopping defense in the country. Um, so I don't think it's fair to say that the committee got it wrong or there should have been more SEC teams. I think Tennessee's performance clearly killed that argument. It didn't even last. That argument didn't last 24 hours. Um,
No, it didn't.
I think a couple steps that the committee can take um, to assure maybe a better quality field is when we're comparing some of these teams that have similar records. They could introduce a quadrant system like in college basketball. I've seen people throwing that idea around. That's a big decision maker uh, in the college basketball tournament. I don't necessarily know that I'd be opposed to that, but it depends on how it's used. One thing I didn't like is people were comparing a two-loss SMU to a three-loss Alabama. Why is that fair to SMU? They didn't lose as many games as Alabama, and they played an extra game. Uh, People will say SMU lost their conference championship they shouldn't be in. If SMU doesn't play their conference champion, or if SMU plays their conference championship and loses it and falls out to an Alabama team that got the benefit of not playing in a conference championship,
Sets a bad precedent. That
no
sets a bad.
one in a conference championship would play again. Every team would leave their conference. Every team would come independent. You'd make your own tough schedule. You wouldn't play a conference championship, and then you'd hope you did enough in the regular season to get in.
That sets a really bad precedent in my eyes. And listen, I'll just add one more point to my thing. People, look, I'm not going to lie to you. Do I think Bama, Ole Miss, South Carolina maybe give you better overall game or somewhat closer games? Maybe. But let me just say the point that I was going to say. I said all week long leading up to that. You want to be in? Win your freaking games. Don't lose to 6-6 Vanderbilt. Don't lose to 6-6 Oklahoma for if you're Alabama. And for Ole Miss, don't lose to 7-5 Florida. Don't lose to 4-8 Kentucky at home early in the season. South Carolina, don't get blown out by Ole Miss. The LSU one, I'm not going to lie. That one, they just got screwed over on that one. That's a totally different one. But yeah, but there's all this precedent about these teams I should have gotten in. Win your games, you get in. This isn't a discussion. I don't get what people's issue with it is. If Bama wins their games and Ole Miss win their games, they're in, and we're not having this argument right now. That's the thing that infuriates me is it going out there and blaming and judging Indiana and SMU for winning their games, which is just ridiculous. Blaming them for going out, it's like shame on Indiana for going 11-1. Shame on SMU for going 10-2, making it to their conference championship game. Shame on them for doing that. No, no, don't shame them for that. They won their games. They should be rewarded. Bama, you beat Vanderbilt, Oklahoma, you're in. Ole Miss, you beat Kentucky and beat Florida, you're in. It doesn't get any simpler than that. And I really don't want to hear any other argument about it because they win their games, then they're in over SMU and Indiana at this point, and possibly playing in that SEC championship, maybe.
Yeah, you're making the most important argument of all. When did it become about the whining and complaining about, oh, this didn't go my way? Buddy, if you go undefeated, they have no choice but to put you in the college football playoff. So yeah, you're exactly right. Win your games, and that solves your problem. It's just profound to see this argument. And um, look, there's a big argument coming from some people, especially in the Alabama camp. And look, I don't want to throw shade at Nick Saban too much because I do like what Nick Saban's brought to the kind of game of college football, the way he's joined College Game Day. I like seeing his insight, but I didn't really agree with his take. He It was confusing. It was almost a backhanded compliment that he thought SMU should get in, but he didn't like the precedent that it set. He said it would encourage teams to play easier non-conference schedules. Why? Alabama didn't lose a non-conference game. They played the easiest non-conference schedule in the country, and they lost three SEC games.
Yeah, I
Um,
mean, I have their schedule pulled up. They played Western Kentucky, South Florida, Wisconsin, and Mercer in non-conference, and they blew all them out. You lost to SEC teams. There is no, and the I think the AD or of Alabama said that they were going to start scheduling easier in non-conference. Buddy, that doesn't matter if you lose SEC games. It doesn't freaking matter.
Yeah, and I really don't know what he's talking about schedule. If you schedule any easier non-conference play, you won't be eligible for the college football playoff because you can't play a bunch of FCS school. I mean, that's the next step. It's playing four FCS schools for Alabama. Alabama's not playing a tough non-conference schedule. Their biggest game non-conference was Wisconsin. You're kidding me. Get out of here with the tough non-conference BS. Teams that played tough non-conference schedules got in. Teams that played cupcake non-conference schedules and then lost three conference games they should have won are teams that are sitting at home. Uh, I mean, the same thing can be said about Ole Miss, and the same thing can be said about South Carolina. It wasn't the non-conference schedule that killed you. It was not being able to win your conference games and get to your conference championship. Teams should not be punished for winning their conference games and getting to their conference championship. But
Exactly.
that's a long rant. We've got to recap some other bowl games from the last couple days. Just hit on four games that I really wanted to talk about. And we'll start first with the Hogs, finishing the season somewhat strong with a Liberty Bowl victory over Texas Tech. Even though, look, I thought about going to this game, but as we got closer and closer to game time and more people on both sides opted out, whether that was to hit the transfer portal or just to prepare for next season or just to prepare for the NFL draft, I decided this was going to be more of a high school football game than a college football game with the amount of freshmen that played in this game. But look, props to the Hogs here. Taylor Green goes out against a bunch of inexperienced players. I'm not trying to take jabs at Taylor Green, but that is a little bit of the catalyst for why he played such a strong game. He had a phenomenal performance, and if they can kind of tap into this Taylor Green, could be exciting. Maybe what happens next year for the Hogs. Um, but to me, I mean, I'd love to hear how much you think this is a victory that you can parade because this was a good Texas Tech team this year. And this is going to be a good team next year with the way they've already started building in the transfer portal. But a lot of the good pieces that they had this year didn't play in this game, and a lot of the good pieces that they'll have next year didn't play in this game. So, how much can you celebrate as a Hogs fan with this victory? And what does this mean for what comes next for the Hogs?
Well, let me just say number one, Taj Brooks didn't play in this game. I think he would have been a very impactful piece for Texas Tech in this game. Uh, their quarterback play was a true freshman who just was not good and was not ready for the moment. Um, but I guess in the positive for Arkansas, you're right. Taylor Green played well. Desmond James, very fast. Holy crap, was he fast? True freshman wide receiver. I look forward to seeing what he can do maybe next year. Tyrell Reed Jr., a sophomore running back. I'm excited to see what he can do. Um, but I wonder. Yeah, I'm with you because yes, it's cool. They won the bowl game. Yeah, they won the Liberty Bowl. Yes, Sam Pittman's 3-0 in bowl games, but I still have doubt for the future. I mean, I voiced my opinion as perfectly clear as I could about Sam Pittman a couple weeks ago. You know, he's a nice guy, very nice guy. I would love to hang out with him and just have a normal conversation about stuff, probably, or just chill out on the lake with him. He seems like a cool guy, but he's not meant to be a head football coach, and that's just my opinion. At the end of the day, he is not meant to be a football coach. He can't recruit. That's the big thing to me. He's doing the transfer portal well. I give him credit. He's gotten some good pieces in the transfer portal for next year. But my big issue, and it's something that I might be old school, and this might be something that some people disagree with, and this is just my opinion. You recruit in state talent when it's there. And he's missed out on a lot of in state talent in Arkansas. And that, look, you want to get recruits from Texas and around Arkansas? Fine. I have no business with that. But you make the state of Arkansas your number one priority. If there's elite talent in the state, go and get it. Go and get it. Do whatever it takes to make that recruit yours. Because if good talent leaves the state and has success, what does that lead to the next ones? I mean, I think of basketball too. Look at Malik Monk. He saw Arkansas basketball wasn't elite, so he went to Kentucky, and he was a lottery pick in the NBA draft. Now Arkansas basketball, obviously, it's different now, but that's the precedent that this could set with that. So listen, it's good they won it all. But I mean, I don't have much better hope for next year. I hope Taylor Green can continue to develop. That's my only hope for next year. Um, we're letting Braylon Russell, who went in and out of the transfer portal like 1,500 times, play in the bowl game and come back whenever he was doing this all for money, pretty much. Um, I don't know what to think here. I think there's a lot that could be fixed for Arkansas football with the firing of Sam Pittman. At the same time, it seems very clear that they are not interested in doing that. So, look, I look forward to hopefully seeing the development of Taylor Green. But look, next year non-conference, you got Notre Dame and Memphis. You don't get a cupcake non-conference. You don't get to play a Oklahoma State team that didn't win a single conference game. You don't get that opportunity. You get Notre Dame and Memphis next year, which are going to be two extremely talented teams. If they get to 6 wins, it'll be a miracle next year. And guess what? We'll have that conversation all over again that we had this year with Sam Pittman, probably.
Yeah. Uh, that's kind of my thoughts. I think good way to close out the season, but there are a lot of other problems with the Razorbacks right now to start calling for a winning season next year, uh, a better winning season next year. I think they finished 7-6 with that bowl game victory, so maybe 8 wins. Um, but then let's talk about maybe to me potentially maybe it's just because I like triple option football. Maybe the game of bowl season up to this point, Navy winning a 21-20 thriller over OU. Um, and look, obviously, the burning question coming from this game was going for two the right call in that situation for Brent Venables. Look, you're up 14-0. Navy goes on to score 21 unanswered. But then you come down the field, you score quickly, you have a chance to go for two with not much time left, which is most likely going to put this triple option team out. And they don't get it. Um, so your thoughts on a ball game and Brent Venables' decision to go for the kill?
Well, let me just say I have no issue with him going for two. I have zero issue with him going for two there. My thinking, and it's been something I've said all postseason long, is you know teams should be aggressive in bowl games. They have nothing to lose. They have nothing to lose in bowl games, which is why I don't get after the first overtime. If you're on offense second, why you don't go for two to win it there? You're going to have to go for two no matter what in the next overtime period. I don't get why you don't just go for it and go for two and win the game. So I have no issue with him going for two. He didn't want to go to overtime. No, you already lost so many players to the portal. You're playing all the backups. You don't want that. You don't want to play your back. You don't want to go to overtime with Notre Dame or not Notre Dame, Navy. So yeah, I have no issue with it. But yeah, Navy just stuck to their offense because very early on, it looked like Arkansas or Oklahoma was going to blow out Navy. It looked like it very early on. And then it was perfect. And then Navy just kept on running its offense, got it to 14-7 and a half, then tied it up, and then the long touchdown run to take the lead. Yeah, I'm happy for Navy to get the win. They deserve it. Look, they're a talented football team. They showed it in this game. But I have no issue with Brent Venables going for two because I think in a bowl game where you have nothing to lose, then why not go all out and try to win the game? If I'm a coach, I would do the same thing.
Yeah. Look, I've got some, fours, pros and cons, fours and against on going for two to win the game in this situation. I like the aggressive decision making for the most part. Even in a game where you have something to lose, I like taking your fate in your destiny and putting it entirely in the hands of your team. I like that faith and that confidence in your team and in what you guys do, no matter the game and no matter the situation. Um, I guess my biggest thing is that virtually since the game was 14-0, Navy's defense had controlled the game. Um, and I understand that in that last drive, they were able to put it together and get in the end zone, but they hadn't done that since the first quarter. Um, and it was really just a couple broken big plays. So to me, my thought process personally would have been to kick and tie the game just because Navy's defense had been so good. And the only two times we beat them were with this big open field, a lot of field to cover. Talk about a 2 point conversion, not much field to cover. They've been getting to the quarterback. Um, and pretty much exactly what had happened the whole game, except for those last two plays on that last drive, happened. They got pressure on the quarterback and they covered the receivers extremely well, and threw an incompletion. So I don't hate the decision to go for it. Um, but I feel like Navy's defense had just controlled the game so much. Maybe playing for overtime was a better call. But hey, I'm not a college football coach. I'm not going to criticize Brent Venables for going out and going for the kill. Like I said, that's taking your destiny, putting it in your own hands. You go, like you said, you go to overtime, you got to play more football. You get the 2 point conversion there, and it's pretty much all she wrote. There's nothing that Navy can really do about it. But fun, exciting game nonetheless. Fun way for Navy to close out their season. Then we had the Iowa State Cyclones pulling off the comeback over the Miami Hurricanes. Canton Ward sits at the second half of this one, something obviously that maybe played a factor into the way this one finished. Um, and Rocco Becht elects to sacrifice the cinnamon roll Pop Tart to celebrate the win. Mouth Heaven gained another angel. Um, Truly becoming one of the biggest spectacles in college football is the Pop Tarts Bowl. It is so much fun to watch. And this was a great game to watch, even with Cam Ward coming out in the second half. The run game by Miami to really kind of control the pace most of the second half was fun. I agree with Cam Ward sitting in the second half. Honestly, hats off to him for playing this game at all. I know some people are giving him garbage for not playing in the second half of a close game. But to me, especially with the state of college football as it is, a lot of guys will sit out a game like this, especially guys with first round potential, will sit this game out entirely. He went out there and put on a show in the first half um, and then left it to his team. And here's the thing: he didn't cost his team anything. His team still played very, very well. The defense just couldn't stop in the Iowa State at the end of this game. Um, but I do kind of wish he would have. I think more just for kind of the aura and what a highlight it could have been. I wish he would have put on the helmet for that Hail Mary. Just trot out for one more play with the guys. 3 seconds left to throw the ball. But a point was made to me. I was obviously watching it with a couple friends, Jaden Lazuski, Trevor Renfro, Ethan Rocker, longtime listeners, uh, and they all brought up the same point. Carson Beck blew out his elbow on a Hail Mary play, so probably don't come out there and throw a Hail Mary in a game that doesn't really matter that much. But it would have been something if Cam Ward had trotted out there and thrown a game-winning Hail Mary. But nonetheless, Matt Campbell does it again with Iowa State. Um, and the Pop Tart Bowl was just a treat.
Yes, it was. Yeah, I mean, listen, this is like you said, this has become one of the bigger spectacles of bowl season. This and the Duke's Mayo Bowl, which is coming up soon. Um, and that's the one thing I love. You know, all this talk about how bowl games don't matter, about how we need to get rid of bowl games, and then you sit down and watch games like that and watch the environment and the fun it is, and you're like, this is why we have bowl games because of fun things like this. And it was great to watch. I enjoyed every second of the bowl game. It was great. Uh, I have no issue with Cam Ward sitting out either because, like you said, what Carson Beck went through. Because now he's got to have repair. He's got to have surgery on his elbow, and now get ready for the NFL draft while also recovering. Cam Ward's going into it. He showed what he could do in the first half, and he's like, "Listen, I've done what I can do. I'm not risking injury because look, let's just be honest with you. He is most likely a candidate, depending on obviously who finishes with the first pick, to be the number one pick in the NFL draft. You're not gonna screw that up for a draft pick. Credit to Travis Hunter. He played a whole game. I don't know if I would have done that if I was in his situation. Same with Shador Sanders. I don't know if I would have done that. But but I give credit to Cam Ward for at least going out and attempting it. And yeah, if there's wondering him going out for the Hail Mary, like you said, Carson Beck got injured on a Hail Mary throw. But yeah, man, Matt Campbell, look, I've loved him at Iowa State. I've been amazed he's been able to stay at Iowa State and no one's been able to pull him away from Iowa State for a bigger job, which I honestly love him staying there and continuing to try to build Iowa State up, which he has done a phenomenal job of. So, yeah, great season for him. I always will love Iowa State. I'm interested to see what they do next year as well because Rocco Beck will be back. A lot of pieces will be back next year too. Not nearly as much as from that return from last year to this year, but they're going to have some pieces back. I think they can compete in that Big 12 again. And yeah, it was a great win for them and a great game. And how about the resurrection of Strawberry from last year, making the return? Nobody saw that coming. That's dedication to a lore, folks. That there's more dedication to that than I've seen in some Marvel TV shows, and that's saying something in a bowl game. I mean, it was fun to watch.
Yeah, they were committed, and hopefully this inspires some of these other bowl games to start coming up with their own crazier traditions to make something happen and make these spectacles because truly it's clearly working out in the favor of the Pop Tarts Bowl. Um, but then finally, BYU pummels Colorado 36-14, putting an end to maybe the most overrated and overhyped team in college football history. Um, you talk about just an overall disappointment. I truly can't believe it. What's transpired this season with the Colorado football team? Just a lot of media attention. Maybe the most media attention a four-loss team has ever gotten in the history of college football. Um, But look, like you said, props to Travis Hunter and Shedeur Sanders for playing in this bowl game. But props to Colorado for taking out all that liability insurance on all their players so that they will play in the bowl game. Uh, I think that's something that all college football programs should do for the rest of the time. I actually think this is one thing Deion Sanders has done that should continue to be a tradition in college football. You want bowl games to mean more. You want players to play more. Then cough up some of that billions of dollars you make in revenue every year and cover your players' future so that they can afford to play in a bowl game. Because you're right. What did Shedeur Sanders and Travis Hunter have to gain in this game? Really nothing. They got the break speed off of them, and it's not going to hurt their draft stock one bit. And it certainly didn't help their draft stock.
It,
But
it, it didn't.
yeah, they went out and played a game though. So props to them for that. But what did Cam Ward have to gain from that game? Nothing. He played a good first half and he sat down. Look, it's going to be an argument till the end of time, as long as the players aren't taken care of. Jake Butt is one of the big proponents of sitting out of bowl games because he got hurt in a bowl game. Uh, but I think you should play in a bowl game. But I understand why guys don't. I don't know that I could be in that situation. If I was on a team, I probably would finish out the season. But I'm not. I've never been in that situation, and I've never had NFL hopes and dreams. Unfortunately, was
I'm shocked by that.
yeah, knew early on I was not going to be an NFL player. Yeah, not gonna happen for me. But some of these guys have these aspirations. So you want guys to play, you want games to be meaningful. Fork up a little bit of that money and cover some of these guys. For all the negatives and all the dislikes I've had about Colorado this season, this is one of these moments where I was like, college football can learn something from Deion Sanders here.
They definitely can. I think it was great for the players to be able to get that. And like I mentioned, they had nothing to play for. Travis Hunter and Shador Sanders, they had proven their point. Shador's or Travis has a Heisman Trophy in his name to prove that point. Whether he should have won it or not, that's debatable. We leave that up to debate. But whether or not he has the Heisman Trophy, that's nothing we can do at this point. Um, so yeah, I thought it was great for them to go out there and play. Yeah, that's something I think the rest of college football can learn. You have all these millions of dollars, which by the way, the football program with its success builds for you and the university. I mean, my biggest example is like I think back to the 1980s Miami Hurricanes. Is they were winning national titles, and they would also all the players be like looking around, it's like, huh, when that new building get there? I guess we brought that in. And then that led to some argument about, well, if we're doing this for the university, why can't they cover us? You know, so I think it's absolutely a fair argument. Like you said, it's one of the few things that I look at Colorado and I'm like, yeah, everyone needs to follow this. Everyone needs to do this. And yeah, I was happy that Colorado got all its players together because it was great to see all the players play in the game because even though it was a blowout, it was nice to kind of build up a game where you knew the star players were playing. And I think that made it great for Colorado, made it great for college football. Just a shame it was a complete blowout, though. That made it kind of bad.
Yeah, enough talk about Colorado here because BYU is the story of this game. They played phenomenal football through and through. And look, even with some early turnovers, this defense just continued to put the pressure on Shador Sanders. Look, Shador Sanders is going to be one of the top quarterback prospects in the draft. But he has got to know when to get rid of the ball. Look, I understand that the offensive line hasn't been the greatest in his tenure in Colorado, but he holds on to the ball too long and he tries to make superhuman plays in situations where a throwaway or a check down would have been better. We don't always need you to be Superman. Sometimes we just need you to be Clark Kent and throw the ball away. So big moments for Colorado in this game that kind of really helped flush them back and keep them out of it. But obviously, it's things that can be fixed and developed. BYU just brought the house, and I think that was the right strategy.
Listen, it's similar to what I had with Caleb Williams last year. When he gets to the NFL, he has to learn to live to the next down, not trying to make every play a touchdown. Not every play is going to be a touchdown. And Caleb Williams slowly has learned that in the NFL this rookie season. I've seen him make plays where I'm like, in college, he would have tried to make a touchdown out of that play, and he's throwing it away and learning. That's something Shador has to learn if he wants to have success at the NFL level. If he can do that, I think he can be successful because he's got great arm talent. He's got a good scrambling ability. He's just got to know when to live to the next play and just move on and not try to make every play a big play. If he can do that, he can be successful. But yeah, that's the main thing. Credit to BYU. I mean, similar to, what I was talking about with Indiana, I don't think anyone had BYU. I mean, I think I picked them to finish dead last in the Big 12 in the preseason. So credit to them. They dominated this game. And a phenomenal season for BYU, and a lot of pieces are coming back as well. So there's going to be an argument for BYU. I'm excited to see where they're ranked in the preseason next year because if they have as much talent coming back as I think they do, then they could be a fun team to watch in that Big 12 next year.
Absolutely. Um, Now let's get into it. We've got some game picks. We're going to talk about these games, make our picks. Um, let's start with the Citrus Bowl here. That's South Carolina versus Illinois. Um, and look, this is probably the best non-college football playoff game uh, in the coming days. Uh, that game happens at what 2 o'clock today. Um, it's going to be an interesting ball game. Obviously, I don't know who's playing and who's not playing in this game. But when these two teams are at their best, this could make for a high-powered offense versus one of the top defenses in college football.
Yeah, it's going to be good. I think both sides will. I'm expecting both teams to play most of their players in this game. I don't know many big prospects for South Carolina that are going to leave this year. Obviously, it comes down to what Lenore Sellers does. Again, I've made my point the last couple of weeks. He will be a good chance, I think, to be a Heisman favorite next year if he does stay at South Carolina. Obviously, no Rocket Sanders in the game for South Carolina hurts their offense with the way they've been able to run the ball. But I think Lenore Sellers is really talented. I think you'll see South Carolina. They're playing, I think, some of the best football in the country. I think they'll win the game today. I think they will.
I'm going to ride with Illinois in this one.
Shocking.
Yeah, shocking the nation here with my selection. But look, I like Lenore Sellers. I like South Carolina. I think this is a fun ball game, but I like this Illinois defense to step up and be able to make a big stop with the game on the line. Then we've got the ReliaQuest Bowl, Alabama, Michigan. Again, I don't exactly know who's going to be facing off in this game, but two teams that met in the semifinal of the college football playoff last year in a true thriller, now meeting on a much smaller stage and much different circumstances this year.
Yeah, I mean, listen, Michigan. This is not Ohio State. Alabama knows what they want to do offensively. Alabama wants to stretch the field, and they have the weapons to do it. Jalen Milroe will be playing in this game, as far as I know. I expect Bama to roll. I mean, no further questions needed for it. I expect Bama to roll in this game and win by double digits.
Yeah, absolutely with you there. I think Bama's going to take over. Michigan showed some promise on defense, especially with kind of getting after and stopping the run like they did against Ohio State.
Will
But
Johnson hurts them though. That's the key.
yeah, I think the big thing to me is that Justice Haynes is not going to be playing in this game. He's gone in the transfer portal. So I think we'll see a lot more Jalen Milroe, and I think we'll see a lot less ground and pound from this team. At least from a running back, I think they maybe worked a little read option, but I think they're going to try and cut it loose with Jalen Milroe and run the score up big in this one. So I do like Bama as well. Now let's take it to our college football playoff game, starting with the one that happens tonight. You better tune in and watch it. We got Boise State versus Penn State in the Fiesta Bowl. Who do you got in this one?
Well, let me just break down number one. We had polls from the fans again for this 62 to 38% in favor. Boise State actually favored by the fans, 62% rolling with Boise State. And look, I could go on and on about different keys in the game, but it comes down to this. Penn State has only allowed one 100-yard rusher this entire season, and they're taking on the best running back in college football, arguably one of the greatest in college football history. So that's the battle. If Penn State can stop the run and stop Ashton Jeanty, they will win this game. It doesn't get any simpler than that. If they can stop the run, they will win this game. I think the Boise State defense can keep it very competitive, but at the end of the day, I think Penn State, I will be rooting for Ashton Jeanty like crazy to run for 3,000 yards in the game, if that's even possible. But I just don't know against this Penn State defense. I think they will stack the box tremendously. I think they have the athletes to slow them down, unfortunately. And I think they're going to force Boise State into some obvious passing downs where I think mistakes will be made. And similar to the Penn State SMU game, they might not even have to throw the football against Boise State. Drew Aller may not have to make the big throws in the game. So, yeah, I'll take Penn State to win the game. I will be rooting for Boise State and Ashton Genty, though.
I'm going to go completely opposite with you here. Look, you're right about what this battle's going to be, but nobody stopped Ashton Genty this year, and nobody's going to. That's just the flaw in it. Um, Penn State did a lot of its damage, like you said, defending the pass game. But if Genty's going and Genty's rolling, like I think he will, there's not going to be a lot of opportunity for the pass game. And then that comes down to, can Penn State make the big plays on offense? They've shown that they have the potential to, but I'm going to ride with Boise State in this one. I think Ashton Genty takes over. I think the Boise State defense shows a little bit of what they showed us in the conference championship, how tough and stingy they were. I think they come out and they make some big plays and they shock the Nittany Lions here and put the country on notice. Uh, then we've got the college football playoff. Peach Bowl, Texas versus Arizona State. Huge, huge game in this Peach Bowl.
It's massive. And again, the fans, this one's a lot closer than I thought it was going to be. 58% of the fans going with Texas, only 58%, 42% going with Arizona State there. A lot closer than I thought it was going to be with the fans. Uh, Listen, I have my beliefs about Texas, about wondering if they're an elite football team, because I don't think they've proven that really this year, that they're one of the elite teams in college football. Um, but similar to that, it's very simple. Texas has got to stop the legend, the GOAT in my heart, Cam Scatterbo. Um, Again, like this man said, I like Cam Scatterbo before it was cool, want it to be known. Um, Listen, I will be rooting for Cam Scatterbo and them, and I think they can go out. I think that Arizona State is playing red hot right now. I think you will see them force Quinn Ewers into some bad situations. I think you'll see a very impressive defensive performance by Arizona State. Give me the Sun Devils in this game. I think they'll be able to run the ball well against Texas. Yeah, I will take the Sun Devils outright in this one. I'll take them.
Yeah, I'm glad we're on the same wave here. I like Arizona State too. I think they're going to force Quinn Ewers to make some bad decisions. The game plan's simple, right? Get pressure on Quinn Ewers. He's certainly struggled over the last few weeks, pressure in his face, made a lot of mistakes. I think you do that, you make him panic, and then you're allowed to control the pace, control the tempo with Cam Scatterbo. This is absolutely a favorable situation for Arizona State, especially neutral site. Then we've got the Rose Bowl, Ohio State versus Oregon, a regular season rematch. What some people thought would have been the conference championship in the Big Ten, and what a few years ago could have been a real Rose Bowl matchup before the dissolution of the modern incarnation of the Pac-12, at least. Ohio State, Oregon, squaring off, and surely what we both think is going to be a high-scoring thriller.
Yeah. Again, the fans, they were split. This was 50-50 throughout most of the polls, but at the end there, someone gave Oregon a last second vote, and 54% are in favor of Oregon in this one. So it's going to be a close game. Uh, it's so tough to me to beat a team twice in a regular season. At the same time, though, it comes down to what Ohio State does offensively. You know, will they spread it out? I think the way they played against Oregon offensively was good. But if there's something at the end where I'm torn between two teams, I look at coaching and I look at quarterback play. And I think Dan Lanning's done a great job this year for Oregon. And I think quarterback play, I think Will Howard's a great quarterback. I think he's very good, but I trust Dylan Gabriel a little bit more. So I'll lean with Oregon in this one, but I would not be shocked if Ohio State won this one. I think they're really talented, and I think they can compete with Oregon. It will be an extremely close game and might be one of the best Rose Bowls we ever see.
Yeah, I'm with you there. But I'm also going to take Oregon in this one for a lot of the same reasons you said. The biggest thing to me is that Ohio State is going to have to go up tempo. They're going to have to spread the ball out, and they're going to have to throw the football deep. And look, they did that well, kept it close against Oregon last time. But when I look at the last couple of weeks of Will Howard's play, even in the games where they've won, even in that game against Tennessee, he's turned the ball over, and he's had a bad habit of turning the ball over. Uh, if you start turning the ball over against this Oregon team, they're going to run it up big. I think Oregon wins this one and wins by at least 2 possessions. Uh, and finally, we've got the Sugar Bowl. Notre Dame, Georgia, squaring off in the Sugar Bowl. Oh man, to say I'm
Get your pick out of the way. I was about to say, get your pick out of the way. We know where you're leaning with
yeah,
this one.
to say I'm anxious is putting it lightly. Um, Look, I like Notre Dame's chances to win this game. No Carson Beck is obviously favorable. Um, Gunnar Stockton had good flashes in the SEC championship game. The big thing for me, where I think gives us a huge advantage, is they didn't do a lot of deep passing. They did a lot of quick throws, RPOs, and runs with him on the field. That stuff is not going to fly against the Notre Dame defense. They're going to have to take some shots, take some opportunities against a really solid Notre Dame secondary. Played a lot of great man coverage last week against the Hoosiers. Um, my big thing is the one time a blitz got through onto Gunnar Stockton in the SEC championship, he nearly threw a pick six to lose the SEC championship and ended up resulting in the game tying field goal. They've had plenty of time to work through pressure. I just wonder if the inexperience, not having enough game reps with hands in your face, is going to have an effect. If that Notre Dame defensive line, even though it's missing Riley Mills, it's still got to Curtis Rourke. If it can still get to Gunnar Stockton, I think the defensive forces the most turnovers in the country can force some turnovers on an inexperienced quarterback and start to run away with this game early. I like the way Notre Dame controls the tempo. I think the defense forces turnovers, and I think that's what they're going to do to be able to beat Georgia in this ball game.
Yeah. Austin, I wish the fans agreed with you. This one was way bigger than I expected. 62% in favor of Georgia in this game. Um, yeah. So for me in this one, I look at both sides. This will be a low scoring affair. This will be a very low scoring affair. I expect both defenses to shine in this game. Uh, I think they will. And my only question going into it is this Notre Dame offensive line against Georgia's defensive line. But the last time I doubted this Notre Dame offensive line, they shut me up and had an incredible performance. So I'm not going to doubt them again. I'll take Notre Dame with you. I think also similar to what you said, if it comes down to Gunnar Stockton making the throws against that Notre Dame pressure, can he do it? I don't know if he can. And I think Notre Dame will be able to score enough in a low scoring affair. I'll just tell you that it will be a low scoring affair. I'll lean with Notre Dame, but it might be first to double digits might win this game.
Yeah, could be that kind of ball game. Finally, we've got bet of the week. I'd love to hear what you've got cooking for this slate of bowl games and college football playoff action.
Well, again, let me ask before we get into it. Just one pick for you?
I've got just one pick, one easy money, get rich quick pick.
Okay. Well, I'll go ahead and say mine. I will take the under in Notre Dame, Georgia. I don't It's at 45 and a half currently. It'll probably drop even more before the game starts tomorrow night. You take the under. These are two elite defenses. I don't think there's going to be 46 points scored in this game. I think this will be very low scoring. This gives me a 17-10 final kind of game. So, yeah, I'll take the under in Notre Dame, Georgia easily.
All right. I'm going to take Boise State plus 11 against Penn State. This is a team I think is going to win outright. But just the way these two teams have dominant run games and good defenses, I think they're going to limit the pass game a lot. This is going to be a close game just merely by the fact that these two teams are going to run the ball so much, and these two defenses are going to, like I said, limit the pass game. So I think that anybody getting out to an 11-point lead is certainly going to be a tough one in this ball game. So I like Boise State plus 11, not just because I think they're going to win, but because I don't think the margin of victory for either team is going to get that big.
Okay. All right. I like it. I'm surprised no Notre Dame money line pick there. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, well, there will be Notre Dame money line, but not everybody's as daring as me. Hopefully, I can help you be a little bit smarter.
All
But
right.
With that being said, that'll do it for us here at the Bold Take Podcast. Go tonight, tune in college football action. Watch, we've got some great games coming up. The first game of the quarterfinal takes place tonight. Um, and then we've got tomorrow's games. That's Austin Waiter. I'm Austin Hill. We want to thank you for listening.